All right, we are live. I don't know if my dog's attacking somebody outside, but I hear it sounds pretty nasty. But we should be okay. I think we're fine. We went back to it anyway. So I was talking to Russ last night on the phone, and Russ is driving home from the game, and I was talking to him, and we get cut off. His Bluetooth dies. He calls and leaves me a message. And then I'm on the phone with somebody else. There's a lot going down last night, and then I get this. So then I get, it translates your messages.
Yeah.
So how iPhone will translate your message. This is what it said. This is what the message was, and this is what the message said. So I want you to understand this. This is Russ's message to me.
Well, don't play it.
No,
I'm gonna play it. I'm not gonna play it. I'm gonna say. I'm gonna
read it.
Well, comma. We won't be doing. Period. What are you doing, buddy? Period. Go make. Come on. You don't need to go to the front. Yeah. You. Bye. Bleeping. Yeah. Bye. Yeah. Me. Mom. Okay. Hopefully I can this morning. From Russ Cohen.
So I can explain it. So I let my dog Jake out when I got home. Perla didn't go out. Jake went and he went to go make. And then he was going to go to the front of the yard to bark. And I was trying to get him to not do that. And then I walked up the stairs and I found that it was still on. So it was fun.
It was fantastic. I'm like, okay.
That is fantastic, by the way. That is fantastic.
This was translated to me.
If I would have gotten that, my text would have been like, "What the bleep are you talking about?"
I was like, okay.
It was pretty funny.
I guess you're home. I wrote back or something like that. Okay,
yeah,
so yeah.
I wish I had $1 for every time Russ has called me and the Bluetooth on his car hasn't kicked in. So it's like, okay, hold on, wait a second.
Yeah. I'll just call you back.
Wait a second, I'll just call you back.
It's just easier.
Yeah.
All right. I think my dog is calming down. But the other thing let's do as part of the show. Let's get right into it here. All right, here we go. Today is the 18th, right? Yeah, sure it is. Oh, come on. Hey, dog. Shh. The Hockey World. It is Friday, March 18th, 2022.
I'm Michael Lagello, and ex-dog. Shut up.
Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
Kevin Allen, Hockey Buzz.
And I'm Eklund. You're watching the HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes every Monday through Friday at this time to fill you in on the comings and goings in the hockey world.
We are sponsored by Coca-Cola.
Yes, I like it. I just had to cook myself. I need to wake up. So here we go. We got a lot to get into with Giroux and all the stuff that's happening there, right? But I want to start with the concept of teams putting the latest thing to tweet out or send a picture of the list of people in the press box. It's just, to me, this is one of the things that should never be allowed to happen. To me, that was always an off the record type thing. Who's in a press box?
Okay,
I've been in business a long time. That's never been off the record.
Right,
Okay,
it's not off the record, but I don't. Okay,
I guess I just didn't think it was the right. I didn't think it was the right thing to do. I don't know.
Last night in Toronto, I said, this is the last home game before the trade deadline. I did not take a picture of it because I think that, that's proprietary information for the press box. I did list the teams that were represented. I think that's fine.
Yeah, I think that's fine too. I don't have a problem. I never give out all the teams because if there's 8 teams, I'm not putting them all. I'll put a few that I think might be consequential, but I don't do this obviously all year long. But I never put names because I never want people to know who's traveling where or whatever. That's really none of their business. I don't ever put the names of the scouts.
Kevin, have you been writing about this for a while? Like, have you something that you've noted? I've never seen you write about it once.
No, but I have. I'm not one to. I'm going to list 35 people, but at trade deadline time, I think it suddenly. If you note that there's 3 scouts from one team that's there and everything. Like I've done that. I wouldn't take a photo of the. Press row. That's not me, but I would mention that, who's there. And to be honest, this has been a thing for a long time. I remember specifically that Jack Ferreira, when he was general manager in San Jose, I think, was telling me that he was coming in and he wanted to look at a player that he was talking about acquiring from David Poile. And Poile asked him not to show up in there or Baltimore, because people would know then that they were talking. And that's how careful they were back then.
Yeah. So. No, and that's so last night, there's a name of there's a representative from every team, not a representative for every team, but there's a person who's employed by every team called the player service person. And the player service guy is generally like, he's a coordinator, right? Like he coordinates things. And, so if a player service guy is in the press box, that implies, maybe he's there to talk about, this is the flight. Here's where you can get your hotel. Like your apartment could be here if the trade's going to happen right after a game. So when a player service guy name pops up on the press list, it's news. And last night that happened with the player service guy from the Florida Panthers in Philadelphia. And, and it was kind of bizarre. And yet the player service guy, it comes as a story. George Richards writes it, I think. Who's a good writer and a great writer from Florida, I think, and one of my favorites. And he writes that the player service guys here, that's pretty, pretty interesting. And the player service guy, I guess, tweets back at some point, no, I'm at the Bellagio or something like that. Like he's like, I'm not there at all, and but your name's on the list. And apparently, so all these stories came out, and apparently what it was that he had called up the Flyers about putting somebody else on the list, and his name ended up being on the list. So it's like, it's interesting to me how these things can like twist around. The Panthers had somebody there, but it wasn't.
Yeah, and somebody had to really dig, because I saw the Panthers had somebody there and just reported they had somebody there, but I knew it wasn't a name I knew. But
nobody knew who that was. And everyone was like, "Who is that? Who's that guy? Who's the Florida Panther guy?"
Right. I didn't even care to investigate.
It became an issue when Evander Kane was playing down in the minors, if you recall, that when they announced they were going to trade him, people took note of there were only 7 teams at the Barracuda game in his first one, and people wrote them all down and put out because that was essentially the list of those teams that were interested in it.
Yeah. And that's fine. And
I'm okay with that. I just won't put people's names, and I won't take a picture of it.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Let's get into the real heart of everything. So let's start with Claude Giroux. Interesting game last night. Definitely an emotional game for him. I thought the Flyers did a good job with it. I thought they did a fine job with it. Giroux's kid was absolutely adorable. Like really just like Gavin
waving at the crowd. That was
waving
awesome.
at the crowd. They gave his kids each silver sticks, which was kind of cool. And then Gavin's like taking the stick and trying to shoot things with it and all that stuff. It's just like, it's really cute. Claude, obviously emotional guy. Is thrice in the game, not once, not twice, but thrice in the game, down, looking like he's hurt for seconds. He
gets checked a couple times.
He gets checked from behind. He gets high sticked in the face. He's a knee collision. It's just like, and the Flyers have to be sitting there like, oh my gosh, what the heck are we doing here? Now they're not. And then throughout the game, rumors are coming out, and now we're looking at, okay, it seems to be that really 2 teams are the only 2 teams here. There's really only 2 teams here, and that being Colorado and Florida, the 2 teams we've talked about for a while. And depending on who you talk to, different favorites in different situations. Kevin, what are your thoughts on this so far? And then we'll go around the horn here.
Well, I mean, I believe where there's smoke, there's fire. I mean, we've heard a lot about the Florida Panthers, making an offer, and I have no idea whether that's a legitimate offer that we've read about online. But it's pretty clear that they're aggressively trying to get them. And we do know from following Lemieux's kind of history that it seems more likely that he'd want to stay in the East.
True. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the way I just feel Florida is going to win this as long as they can satisfy the needs of the Flyers. And, I wonder, I don't know. I mean, Russ could speak to this better than I can, but I looked at their prospect and asked somebody I trust about him. And he said Colorado doesn't have anything that can match what Florida can offer. So other than the first round pick. So.
Well, Colorado doesn't have anything that matches Florida, what they're willing to give up. But they're not willing to give up Newhook. They're not willing to give up Byram. They're not willing to give up Martin Kaut. So of the prospects that they're willing to give up, and that
I don't know if I still agree with that. All right. So first thing I want to say is, at the post game, it was really evident Giroux does not want to leave.
Yeah,
he doesn't.
I've said that all along,
and he really doesn't. And what's interesting is, because he's not super old, you kind of wonder if there was better cap management with the Flyers would this ever even be an issue? He probably would be able to stay the rest of his career, but they have bungled the cap to the point.
Can I share something with you, Russ, on that? That I'm so glad you brought this up. I talked to another Flyer player today who did not want me to write it, but said you can say it in the podcast. He says you can say it to people, but if this gets, and I, of course, don't use my name. But he's like, why is it that we, the great players of a team, he's a top player on the Flyers team. Like, why is it that we're the ones who have to fix this?
That's
why
fair.
Why is it that Claude Giroux has to fix the fact that he can't be fit under the cap?
Right.
Why? How is that? And it's an interesting question.
They're not asking him to fix it. They're asking him to pay the price for it.
Right.
So,
But by trading, by him leaving town, that fixes it.
But this is cap mismanagement. That's what got them to this point. So there's that. And then as far as the prospect thing goes, Zach, because of what the Flyers need, and because Hellison's off the board, Justin Barron is still really important for them, more important than Samoskevich, because the Flyers do need more blue liners and other ones that could fill in and play the power play. As an example, if Ellis gets hurt again, Barron is a power play guy. He's a fast offensive defenseman. So I think based on their needs, Colorado actually has the better offer. Maybe someone says, hey, Samoskevich is better than Barron. I probably agree with them on that because there's a few things I don't love about Barron. But I have to tell you that I think as far as needs go, Colorado is the better place. But what's really becoming clear here is that even though Colorado is in it, they don't seem to be very active. So either they gave an offer and they're not moving on it, and that's what I think is causing problems for Chuck Fletcher and Florida, because Florida's dug into the sand and has basically said, you could, it's basically like you could order off of menu A, B, or C, and this is what we're talking about here. You can't have any of these other guys. And for me, hold on, Mike, the fact that they can't get Denisenko is a failure no matter what. Now, this could still be an okay trade, but the fact that they're not getting Denisenko, if they're going to do a 50% retention, is a failure.
Well, Friedman said this morning that that Florida might be playing coy a little bit here, and based on what was rumored last night as the package that was being offered,
which wasn't true.
Right? No, I'm just using that as a reference point. I'm not saying it's true or not, but based on that as a reference point, if they're talking about something less than that, then Philadelphia is getting taken to the cleaners here. But the problem is if Giroux only wants to go to one place, then you really can't start a bidding war. And that's the problem.
Well, the other thing is too, and Russ brought up a prospect, so that's fine. But Mike, the players you brought in have never been on the table. When you make this kind of trade, it's never people off the roster.
Right.
Yeah, right. It's not.
Those don't even come into it. Yeah.
When we were talking about Colorado rumors regarding Giroux, it wasn't any of those players. It was Sampo Ranta, it was Hellison, and it was Barron.
Right.
Those are secondary level prospects on the Avalanche. And if the names that we're hearing from Florida are the ones that actually go in the Giroux deal, they're secondary level prospects too. They're not getting Denisenko, and he's probably their best prospect. They're not getting Anton Lundell, who is already in the NHL.
Yeah,
that's what I mean. And this point I made to Russ last night. If you were basing the fact that you were going to reset on what you were going to get in a Giroux deal on top of all your players coming back healthy next year, you're falling way short because you're not getting players that belong in your lineup next year. More than likely, if the names are true, they're probably third and fourth line guys, and they're not top six guys. So you're not getting a replacement.
But here's the thing about this, right? Like, this is really – the longer this, so I have connections to this deal on both sides, which is nice. But let's play it. Sometimes it's good to take the thing like I didn't like. So let's go outside of it and say that this was a trade between two people I didn't know so well, and I was looking at it from the outside and what's happening. You know what I mean? And I like to do that to get perspective. And there's Colorado, there's Florida. Obviously, I think Colorado can make a better offer. I look at it that way. But it hasn't happened yet. To me, that really cries out to one of two things. If I'm from the outside, I'm sitting there saying, okay, the Flyers are still trying to convince Giroux to go to Colorado, or the Flyers have basically not asked Giroux if in a situation where the Flyers are keeping Colorado open so that they can at least have two people negotiating, but they know that they can't move him to Colorado, so they keep because Colorado at one point last week, I was hearing had a really good deal and they thought they were going to get him. They haven't gotten him yet, and I thought, okay, maybe that's good. Maybe that's they're not going to get him until after the
price goes down. Maybe
until I thought the 1000th game they might be waiting, but that didn't happen yet.
Yeah. What we haven't mentioned here, which is very important, is the price also reflects the fact that I'm guessing that Claude Giroux is only allowed two people to bid.
Right.
Like the price would be much greater if we had 3 or 4 teams. If the Rangers were allowed to bid, they'd be paying more.
Right.
And the other element that I was bringing up, and this was brought up about from someone from another team who has followed the situation. I said, well, and Owen Tippett, is even though the Panthers view him as a first round pick, and he's probably not that, at least in terms of production. And he pointed out, he goes, there's still a romance with Tippett, that people just are still intrigued by him, that perhaps he's the guy. And I know Russ believes strongly that guys can develop later, but I don't know. I don't know whether Tippett's ever going to be that guy or not, but
I'm doubting it.
Yeah.
To be fair, I'm doubting it.
Yeah. But there is a romance with that, and that's probably one of the reasons why, the Flyers kind of like that. I think they really want Tippett as part of that.
Yeah. And I think because Florida doesn't have a first round pick, Florida is selling it as a first round pick. Like this is you're getting a first round pick, right? And Florida, they already have gotten Sherratt where they used their first round pick. So they didn't care enough about this to keep that first round pick and not get Sherratt. If they really wanted this, they might have kept that first round pick and not gotten Sherratt. So to me, that means Florida either thinks that they can get him without that first round pick, or they're willing to.
But
the reality here is,
Sherratt was a different thing. Sherratt was an open process where you probably had 6 or 7 teams bidding. That's why the price that they paid was so
high, right,
over the top, because
and they knew that, right, and from what I understand, Boston put in an offer that was almost identical as far as quality goes to Florida, and Montreal chose to send him to Florida and not Boston. I heard that from a source in Boston and a source in Florida. Boston was a little miffed that when the trade happened, Boston thinks their offer was better. But they didn't get it. I don't know if that's a Montreal Boston thing or what it is. It probably is just a case of of Gordon or whoever up in Montreal liking one of the players in Florida, just particularly liking him like that. That happens. The guy, they like the guy. They like the guy they got. So now we're in a really interesting, everybody was getting mad at each other last night. I heard a little bit of that going on, and I feel like we're in a cooling down day. I feel like the Giroux, if I was to guess, I feel like this is going to be a cooling down day where people are going to figure out what's going on. The Flyers are probably going to try to go back to Claude and say, Lee, we need more teams. I bet you that's going to happen. We need.
Yeah, but it still doesn't mean he's going to bend on.
Doesn't mean he's going to go there. And Claude is pissed off too, because obviously, he's a player, and he wanted to be on that plane to Ottawa last night. I can tell you that.
And you knew he wasn't going to be.
You knew he wasn't going to be.
This was it. He was not going to play in any other games or even show up on a road trip. And
right.
You can tell the fact that he is now being sit down is bugging him.
Oh, he's not the kind of guy that goes well with at all.
Although I would say this, there's something cool about the fact that he's closing out his career having just been honored for
absolutely.
games. I really
fans
think
don't usually get that opportunity, Kev. Usually, fans wake up and their favorite player's gone, and you didn't really have a chance to celebrate it unless you were at the last game and at least saw him play.
Yeah, that was cool. it was almost like you celebrated his career. You said goodbye. This was really a goodbye party. It was a going away party.
It was all that you could tell. And actually, when Claude wasn't out for the last minute of the game, which in a normally situation he would definitely be out for, we're all wondering, maybe afraid of getting hurt. And honestly, it came out later that he was too emotional. He couldn't go out there. He told
No. Yo did not want him out there in a PK situation. That's really what it was. Because at that point in the game, They were protecting a lead, and you could get hit by a puck blocking a shot. And Yo said he didn't want any part of that with Giroux, knowing what's going on, and that's the right decision.
Claude told some people that he didn't think he could be out there at that point.
Wow.
And you know, in that, because it was, and when you go to him on the you know, when they went to him on the screen and TV and stuff like that, you could tell he was shaky. He wasn't like the focus Giroux. He was up. He realized this was the end of something.
He was rooting when they showed him on the screen.
Yeah,
that he was rooting on his teammates. I think he knew he wasn't going to be out there in that situation. That's me. I was there. I looked at.
Yeah. I mean,
that was my feeling. I could still be wrong, but that was just my feeling.
Yeah.
And they did talk about it post game.
Yeah, he did talk about post game too. So that's the Giroux situation. But the bigger story. So we'll see what happens with that. I mean, Florida's in Anaheim tonight. The Flyers are in Ottawa.
One more thing about the Flyers, Zach.
Yep.
One basic question: while all this effort's being put into trading Claude Giroux, what about the 5 other guys they should be trading?
And they literally came out and said, somebody came out and said that they're not going to worry about Justin Braun until Giroux's done. That to me is like
a mistake.
Is ridiculous.
Then everybody else is in a holding pattern until then.
Yeah, but they've been talking to people about Braun.
Oh no, they've been talking, but a few teams will just give up on it.
They're not going
to. Nobody's giving up on Justin Braun.
Right, but you'd have to admit, and
Broussard. I mean, there's a few players.
Broussard's another one.
You would have to admit that Justin Braun is probably the plan B or the plan C for the teams that are out there looking for a defenseman before the deadline. I mean, in terms of like the teams that are still looking for top 4 options, he's not the first choice.
So let's move on to the big story today, which is probably not Giroux because I think we're in a waiting pattern there. But is the acknowledgement that Hampus Lindholm is available, right? And that he's going to go out there and available. And Kevin, what are your thoughts on this? This is a big one.
Well, it really is, and I think a lot of teams, in fact, I know a lot of teams thought this was going to be a situation where it would come down to the last minute, but they would sign him. I mean, the Ducks really did want to re-sign him, and he seemed to have interest in going there. But it didn't come to pass, and Pat Verbeek apparently told some folks last night it's not going to happen. We're going to prepare, and then immediately put out that he's expecting what now seems to be a Sherratt package, which is the first round, third round, and a prospect. Top prospect is what he said. Right. So it's going to be interesting. I mean, I think the Rangers are going to be all over this. I would put them as the favorite of this because that really pushes their defense. Like you slot him in the second pairing. I wouldn't break up that first pairing. It's it's almost the perfect blend. But I would slot him in that second with Trouba, and then you move Miller down, and suddenly you've got a great pairing. So I think they're going to get what they want for him because I think he's a terrific defenseman, and I know there's going to be a lot of interest. So it'll be interesting to see, what transpires. I mean, who would people offer in order to get that? So
well, I mean, the other teams that were reported this morning when the news came out were Boston and St. Louis. St. Louis has been rumored to be in on Chychrun, and Boston, as we were just talking about, fell short on Sherratt. I mean, those both would make sense, and I think both have enough in the coffers to be able to offer what Verbeek is looking for. It depends on whether Verbeek is looking for a prospect that is somebody who can step in next year or somebody who's more of a developmental piece like Smolonic, who was in the Sherratt deal. I mean, if it's St. Louis, I mean, Russ, I mean, Perunovich or
Perunovich would definitely be
or Jake guy. Neighbors or somebody like that.
Yeah, Neighbors is the next one that everybody's been talking about for sure.
Whereas Boston, I mean, it could be Vakanainen, it could be a couple other.
Boston's got, I mean, they're going to come up short, especially if they're not going to part with Fabian Lysell or Mason Lowery, which is what we're hearing. Yeah, and they're really going to come up short.
Now, the thing is, and I've heard from a number of Friedman and LeBron and a few others that the Leafs love Lindholm. They'd love to get him, but they're just not willing to pay the price that. Yeah. Not just the first round pick. They're not willing. The prospect. They love their top 4 prospects. and they're not going to trade them probably for anything.
Yeah, I don't think they should. I think they're making the right move there. Honestly, I do. I think that's
the feeling that I got last night in talking to people and the fit, and as you reported this morning, it sounds to me like their first focus is Giordano.
I wrote that 1 month ago. I mean, I heard a month ago that someone in Toronto said Giordano's going to be the game plan. That is the guy. That's the guy we're going to go after. And I think honestly, and it makes so much sense because not only are you bringing in a guy who can play both sides, like you said, Mike,
right,
but you're also bringing in a guy who's just a quality character guy into a locker room that can always use quality character guys.
Right,
and he can take some pressure away in the media. He's a media guy. He talks to people really well.
He's from Toronto.
And he also he's a stabilizing type character. Like he's not a vociferous type leader, right?
We know he wants to play there because he has a list.
Yeah, he does. That's one of his teams.
Okay.
Vociferous leader, and just like he's not like a bang bang bang, on your head. Like we talked about Parise, he's kind of makes himself known in the locker room. Suter makes himself known in the locker room. Giordano is like a quiet like almost like it kind of reminds me of like a Jason Smith type character that used to be in Philly. Just a leader.
Jason Smith for the 1-year captain that he was.
Yeah, but he was 1-year captain, but not just as a captain, but just that personality of like, he's a stabilizer. Like he's a stabilizing guy.
Oh, Giordano's a 1-year captain.
Luke Richardson, same way. Luke Richardson too. Richardson was that same kind of player too, just like that. But Giordano, I think it's a great fit for Toronto.
Right, but the overriding thing is that the perception out there, and Seattle's going to say, well, we want a first-round pick. You're not getting a first-round pick. He's 38 years old. He's still playing well, but he's not playing at the level that he did a few years ago. I think more than likely it's going to be a second-round pick and a prospect, and because Toronto is on their list and maybe Calgary is, I think one of those teams can make that deal happen. It's going to be a tough squeeze in terms of salary cap, but I think that you're probably going to see either him going to Toronto or, then it falls back to like the Justin Brauns or the Jacob Middletons or somebody like that.
Yeah. And I think now the other story that's coming out today, and I also think I was going to write on this, but right before we ran out of time, I was on the phone about this right before he came in, so I was a couple minutes late, is the Philip Forsberg story, Kevin, which, man, watching him last night, he scored a hell of a goal in that game.
Before I launch into Forsberg, I did want to add something to what Mike said, because, we don't normally talk about this. We get kind of caught up in the name players, but, Giordano won a Norris Trophy 3 years ago, and I don't want to be Mr. Negative about him, but has anybody watched him this season? He is not the same player,
right?
That he was. And I'm not going to say that he can't help, but if the fan base is expecting to get this guy who was a dominant performer, I haven't seen that from him this season.
It could be the Dave Hatchell effect, but
it's a really interesting point.
I based my opinion on this because I saw Seattle last week. He took a couple penalties that were sort of lazy penalties against Toronto, and he's lost a step. But he's still. I equated Kevin. I actually think that this guy was better at the point that the Leafs traded for him in 2004. But I equate it with them getting Brian Leetch from the Rangers in 2004. He was not the Brian Leetch of '94 when he won the Stanley Cup, but he was still Brian Leetch. He still had something.
Yeah, he's a smart player. Yeah.
But here's the thing: he won that Norris Trophy. He won that trophy playing alongside who, Kevin, in Calgary, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And I think if he's going to be returning to playing with Brody in Toronto,
Plus, I think there's two other factors too. I think when guys get traded and they know I think the pride, gives them an extra gear, and they're going to be part of it. They think they actually have a chance to win a cup. And so they'll play harder. But I just did want to echo what Mike said, because I think it's a point that we often don't discuss. We tend to talk about these guys, and it is the body of work that moves them, but it's where they're at now, and I just don't think he's kind of at the same level. But with Forsberg, it's been interesting that David Poile has his own show in Nashville, so we've been able to follow these negotiations pretty well. Every week they ask him about it, and Poyle's been honest.
He's always
And he said a week ago, we're still working at it, but we can't agree on a number. Now, he didn't say whether it was the number of years, the average salary, or the total package, but he said we can't agree on a number. But now you're hearing that they're getting closer, and I think they feel that it's going to get done. And to be honest, from the people I've talked to, and probably you are too, Eklund, most people assume.
Yeah, there's an assumption that's going to be.
I did speak to someone last night, Kev, in the press box, who's in the know and felt like it will go down to the wire but get done.
Yeah. Well, the one thing is, and again, it's the personality of Philip Forsberg is, he wants to stay there. He likes it there. And, as was presented to me by a member of the organization, Poyle knows he's in a can't-win situation. If he keeps him and doesn't get him signed, the fans are going to be all over him.
Right.
They want him there. He's a very popular player.
Yeah.
So they have to make sure they get it done. So I think ultimately they're going to pay him more money, I believe, than Yossi is getting in terms of average salary, or at least exactly the same. I think he'll be a $9 million, because I don't know how you could justify not giving him more than Duchesne and Johansson.
He's probably the most popular forward they've ever had.
Yeah, I would say that's fair, and his level of consistency has been remarkable. He scores the same number of goals every year, and he's streaky, but what goal scorer isn't? So that would take him. But boy, would that change the marketplace if he was available?
He's available. That does.
Yeah, it would. Kev, the person I spoke to yesterday thought because of the tax situation, 8.5 could be the number, not 9.
Yeah, the taxes and there. The Rangers will be all over this if he was out there.
He's not the whole thing. I guess he's not really out there.
Right.
And I don't think he is either. It's interesting. The thing about Nashville that was, just as an aside, has always been the case with me is, they feel like a team that participates in the NHL and not an NHL team. If that makes any sense.
Well, if you want to talk about a non-NHL goalie, I'll agree with you on UC Saros last night.
Yeah, I'm just saying when you're around the organization, when you're there, they really just do things their own way, their different way, and they don't. It used to be because the rest of the league they didn't feel like they had any respect, so they just like, okay, we're our own thing. Screw the NHL. We're gonna play the NHL teams. It's almost like, they're a Swedish elite team playing in the NHL. It's a weird, I don't know, something about them. I don't know. I can't put my finger on it. Do you get that at all, Kevin, what I'm saying at all?
I'm not really following. I mean, it's a little bit different there because, they're not a traditional NHL market. Like, I've talked about this before. Like, for some teams, it's not a big deal if they make the playoffs.
Yeah.
It is in Nashville. Like,
NHL, it's a huge deal because they need.
Yeah, you got to get into the playoffs in Nashville because you've got to stoke that fan base, and you got to keep it every year. You've got to stoke it again because they get fired up, and I think that affects everything. So getting in the playoffs is important to them, and you got to do everything in your power in order to do that. And I think
here's my last effort to try to convey what I'm saying. They're in a non-traditional market, but they're being run probably more traditionally than any other team in the NHL. Like, as far as what you expect a team, like Poyle is the true leader, a GM who's been there forever. There's no other team that has that in the NHL. He is everything as far as vision on the team goes.
Well, I think Doug Wilson is that. I think he's the other one.
All right, yeah, to a degree, but I think Poyle's different.
To a degree. Like, who else is there? Who else has been running the San Jose Sharks in the, seriously, like, it's Doug Wilson is that guy.
For 30 years.
Doug Wilson has been there forever. I'm not saying he hasn't been there.
But that's the only other one I can think of. I mean, that's just
Doug Wilson, I think, has been more affected maybe by like what owners have wanted him to do.
But can you say this in terms of if the direction that it's going and Forsberg does get signed to a long-term extension and it's in the range of what Yossi is getting, which is rumored, and then high 8s to low 9s. that more than likely they're going to find a way to move. They're going to have to move out some kind of money. And I don't know whether that, they find a taker for Ryan Johansson or if they trade Michael Granlund, but they're going to have to be able to clear out money. They just have to.
Yeah. I mean, will they have to now? I mean, not
no,
yet.
not now, because the contract wouldn't kick in until the summer. But I mean, budget wise, I don't think that they're not exactly a budget team, but they're not exactly a freewheeling spending team like
that's true.
Toronto.
But they do go to the cap now, so which I'll take a look at this while we're talking about it.
I got it here right now. Without signing him, they're 24 million under the cap, but they have other players that they have to get signed. So I'm
looking at next year. So where are they at next year? So yeah, because I thought they could do it pretty easily when I looked before, but it's been a while since I looked. Yeah. So they've got 15 players signed at 56,000. So they got 24. Yeah, they don't really have any issues in the foreseeable future. Unless one of these guys that we're not counting on ends up becoming a big time player. But
right, they might want to get Tanner Jeannot locked up on a long-term deal.
He had a nice goal yesterday.
Yeah, I mean,
well, he's a good player, but
right. But I mean, he's making $800,000 now, and he's entering the final year of his contract. If you want to strike while the iron is hot and get him locked up on something team friendly, then it's probably going to cost you $3.5 million or something like that. I mean, that's
they got 24 million, and even if they give Forsberg 9, then you're still at 15, and they've got everybody else that they need locked up. I think they're in pretty good shape, actually.
Yeah, and they're watching last night. They are a better team than I thought they were. I mean, I think they really are. Just they
had some dumb penalties, and I other than
they didn't
that,
play a good game.
They didn't game.
They also faced
Saros let them down. Actually, Saros played a bad game.
I mean, to be fair, the Flyers played the 7th game of the Stanley Cup Finals.
Maybe I'm a blind spot for them, but I almost feel like they're doing it with mirrors. Like I can't see why that team is has performed the way it has.
You know what it is? Their blue line's really exceptional. Like Yossi, there was a play at the end of the game that I've never seen anybody do in recent memory. Like I want to say there was 7 seconds to go, and the Flyers went to ice the puck. And Yossi actually beat the puck. He got the puck, and he actually got the icing before time ran out. And I was like, that was a nearly impossible play for him to do that. But he turned on the speed. He did it, and he gave his team one more possession. And I was like, that was like almost a superhuman effort.
He can fly. He can just fly. It's crazy how fast.
Yeah, and I think Russ raises a good point. They're really doing it on the strength of Yossi and Saros. I know Saros wasn't good last night.
No, but he's been good.
He's been good like all season. But I'll tell you, you talk about their defense, but they don't believe their defense is good enough right now. They're looking for a second pairing guy. Like Fabro has been better this season, but I think they think. He's the third pairing guy. So
did they go in on Lindholm?
Pardon me?
Did they go for Hampus Lindholm?
I don't think so. Because I don't think they think they're close enough to give away those assets.
Yeah.
But I mean, if it was somebody with term, maybe. I mean, could they be on Chychrun? I mean, that would make sense.
I don't know. Do they have the assets to get that done? I'm not sure they do.
Yeah, I think it's going to be sketchy for them to have the assets for Chychrun.
Yeah.
Well, I did want to mention one thing about the Predators. So I did see Terry Crisp last night, and he is retiring. And, of course, our buddy Pete Weber works with him. But Terry got a nice little applause from the crowd when the Flyers put him up on the board, showed a couple pictures because he's won a couple of them. Yeah. And that was nice. It was nice for him because he hasn't been traveling on the road apparently. So I got to wish him, well in his next career, whatever he's going to do. Super nice guy though, and that was nice for him to get that kind of. He was very happy with what the Flyers did for him, and that was really, that's a nice thing, a very thoughtful thing.
It is. He's such a classy guy.
He is.
I don't think he's doing a game coverage. I think he does special features for them. Right?
Oh, he's an in between periods guy. Yeah, like he's
in between periods. He's not in the booth anymore. So
okay, gotcha.
Like in Nashville, he sits like it on the concourse because I've actually done his in between period. I've been in Nashville a couple times. I've gone on the show with him in between periods, and it's just he sits in the concourse and does like a thing there.
But he's still very well liked as part of that team there, as is Pete Weber. And I think that's important. By the way,
I agree.
I don't like it when I hear people make fun of longtime announcers because they think they've lost their stuff. You know, the reason they're there is because the fans like them, and like it's one of the few things where I think fan balloting, and it's not official balloting, but I think they should have a say in who their broadcasters are. Because you connect with these guys. In Detroit, Mickey Redmond he's an institution. And is he a great analyst? Not really, but people in Detroit love him. So
these guys, they're responsible often for teaching people the game. Like that's the one thing and that's so important. Like how Bobby Clark, Gene Hart in Philly taught a lot of the Flyers fans the game of hockey. And Pete Weber taught a lot of Nashville fans the game of hockey. And that's enormous. Being able to teach, being able to while you're calling a game, it's a stupid thing. That's offside because you didn't get out of the zone, and just throwing that little thing because you didn't get out of the zone in time, without sounding like you're demeaning to hockey fans who are actually watching it, but also explaining to a hockey fan who doesn't quite understand why that's offside. That's a tough thing to balance. Pete does that so well.
The one thing I love to bring this up because I think it's cool, and I don't even know if the Detroit fans appreciated it, but and for those of us who watch the game a lot, especially when you're live, and you can sense and feel when the puck's going the other way, or when there's going to be a 2-on-1 and 3-on-2. We've seen enough hockey. Well, Mickey Redmond has seen more hockey than any of us, and so when he's doing analysis of a game, when that's going to happen, he says, "Look out."
Yeah, don't you love that? I've heard him do that.
I absolutely love that. I think it's a great little gimmick, and fans in Detroit, know exactly then.
And it's before you even see what's developing.
No, that's right. He sees it before, like a half second.
Now he's good. I've listened to him. He's very good. He's still very good. Yeah. Pete Weber's still very good too.
Pete Weber's very, very good. He's one of my favorite people. So I'm biased, but I think Pete Weber.
I'm biased too, but he's good. He's
an amazing guy. All right. So next up we have
time out. Breaking news here.
Yes.
Frank Cervelli reporting that the Blackhawks are trading Brandon Hagel. Russ, he's having a good year, and he's only making $1.5 million. And now I don't know whether Chicago is going to get the reported return of what they supposedly wanted for him, which was a first-round pick, which I think is ridiculous.
They're not getting a first-round pick.
No, we don't know where, and we don't know for what, but we'll probably find that out before the end of the show. So continue.
I think the other name I want to mention, because this is our last show before Monday and everything like that, we have to go through the big names, and we have to get to Marc-Andre Fleury for a second, okay? Because he is obviously. It was interesting today. I heard Brian Lawton on XM for a bit, and Lawton used to work with Alan Walsh at Octagon. Lawton has, he does have familiarity with Fleury, and the whole concept of people saying, well, maybe he wants to retire, maybe he doesn't want to go anywhere, or whatever like that. Lawton says, I don't buy that for a second. He says, I really think he's going to want to keep playing, and he says, I even think he's going to want to play next year. And Lawton says, I think he can play next year. I think he's still Sprite, which is a good word to use for him, for Fleury, because he is still so quick on his skates. He's such a good skater. That is such a big thing, with him. And he still has that. So Lawton thinks he's going to get moved. I think that Colorado is not in anymore as for Fleury. I get the impression that, they do have. Even though I don't think their goalies are like the Stanley Cup goalies that you'd want to have, they both are having good seasons, and they're going hard after Giroux, and they can't do both. If they get Giroux, can they get Fleury too? I don't think they can.
They haven't been. I don't think they've ever been on Colorado on Fleury. I think we've always talked about they should and everything.
Yeah. All right, well, cool. Let's just eliminate them.
Yeah.
Edmonton, I still think, has some aspirations to Marc-Andre Fleury.
I don't think he's going there.
I don't know whether he goes there or not.
It's a tire fire. Why would he go there?
I don't know. I'm just let's just move on.
And,
I
and
don't want to get into the Edmonton debate. I don't think they're much.
no, I know, and I'll rule out Toronto because Toronto apparently is not willing to pay the price that, according to the reports, they put in a call to Chicago. Now, obviously, the Leafs would have to contact Alan Walsh and find out whether Fleury would be willing to go to Toronto. But I think their interest is limited based on the fact that Campbell supposedly will be back in the next week. I do think the Leafs will make a sort of a depth goaltending trade because Joseph Wall, one of their minor league goalies, went down last night against Hershey, and now they have only three goalies, and I don't count Michael Hutchinson because if Michael Hutchinson's playing in the NHL, you're in deep trouble, or Carter Hutton.
So Shalgren, he's 2-0.
Okay, Russ. Thank you.
He's not coming out.
I was at the game. I know.
Well, he can't come out. He won again.
Somebody on.
Yeah, he's going to play against Nashville on stuff.
He's going to win out the season.
Wait. I was listening.
Swedish Hamburglar.
Hold on. I was listening to the NHL Tonight. The thing on the NHL Network before the game yesterday, and I was building. I was building something in the backyard. I can't explain what it is. I'll explain later. But anyway, I was building something in the backyard, and somebody on the NHL Network actually said, on the NHL Network said, with Shalgren there right now, I think that I now feel that Toronto is a serious contender.
Oh my God!
And I was just like, that really did kind of. I mean, listen, he's played really well, but that's not why you think he's.
So it's obviously somebody's been listening to TSN and then pump up Shalgren like he's Henrik Lundqvist. See, this is what I mean.
He does look good.
I don't care.
Oh my God!
I don't give a crap.
All right, let's not go down this road. We don't have time for this. Let's stop.
Okay.
No time for this.
We'll start a runaway freight train.
It's my fault. I take credit for that. Sorry. I am trying not to start up Mike here. All right. Fleury. We got to finish Fleury. Okay, so let's say Edmonton. Probably not. Right.
Minnesota.
Kevin, you wrote in your column that you're 10 not so. I forgot how you put it.
Yeah. I'm sure they're going to do it. And I just base that on the fact that I've watched Craig Leopold. From the time he's been an owner, I know how involved he is in this. Yeah. I know Bill Guerin. I know how close he was to Fleury. He knows him well.
Yeah.
And I believe, as Lawton does, that Fleury does want to play one more run. And the options are kind of limited for Fleury in terms of. Good places to go, and so I think there's a chance that could happen.
Yeah, I think this is the Wild are going to be all in. I do agree. Yeah, I think, and I think
it's funny though. Like not to say anything bad about Brian Lawton or anything. I don't think Marc-Andre Fleury knows what he's going to do for Marc-Andre Fleury half the time.
No, I think that's probably true.
It is, although by now I think he knows.
Okay,
but now I think he does too, and I think that Guerin can get him fired up. Guerin can get him fired up to do
that. Get anybody fired up,
right? I mean, Guerin is one of my favorites. I've told the story a lot before, but it's so cool. My favorite Guerin story was when the Penguins won their Stanley Cup with Guerin there, and we were as reporters, we got to walk around the ice and watching the Stanley Cup being passed from family member to the dogs, to the dog walker, to this, to that. Everybody's holding the Stanley Cup up, and at one point, Crosby looked at Guerin and we got it. We got it. Let's take. They wanted their time with it alone in the locker room type of thing, And Crosby's that Crosby, if he goes up and takes it from somebody, it's makes Crosby look bad, kind of thing. Crosby's taking it from some family member, and Guerin just goes up and says, "Excuse me, I need this." Grabs the cup and skates at full speed into the locker room, and the players follow it. I just loved it. It was just one of those moments.
That is so Bill Guerin.
Isn't that so Bill Guerin?
Yeah, that is so brilliant.
Pressure off of Sidney Crosby to not be the guy who did that. He's like, I'll be the guy. I'll be the jerk in the room right now. And it was that was a moment when I completely fell in love with Bill Guerin. I'm like, that's it.
Well, I've known him since he was really young, and I say that he and Kachuk changed the complexion of U.S. hockey because of he and Kachuk gave them the power forward that they didn't have before then. But the other element of that was. They played in the World Cup on that line with Modano. And if you ever talk to Mike Modano about what it was like to play with Bill Guerin, they were on him all the time, particularly Bill, about raising his level. And they just pushed Mike to go hard. And in hindsight, he's very thankful of that. And that persuasive quality that you alluded to is definitely there with Bill Guerin.
I had it happen, and I had it happen with me when the first time St. Louis came to town when I was doing this, and Andy Strickland was traveling with the Blues and he was writing for us. He said Guerin and Kachuk want to meet you, and they really want to, whatever it was, at that time. I think I'm going to get this right. It was, yeah. So anyway, I remember Kachuk Guerin was there too, right? Anyway, he was there in St. Louis with Kachuk, right? Weren't they together? No, it was Kachuk and Pronger. I'm sorry, wrong story. Forget it. I'm done. Move along. But they cornered me. They did that persuasive thing you're talking about, where they cornered me. It was Pronger and Kachuk cornered me in the locker room and said, "We're not letting you out of here until you tell us all the rumors." And they were just being joking about, but they were they did a real intimidating type thing. It was just hilarious. They're funny guys. Anyway, I apologize for messing up the story. But so we think Fleury, unless
I think it's Chicago or Minnesota. I think he either stays or he goes there. I don't think he's going to waive to Toronto. I don't think he's going to waive to. I don't think he's going to go back to Vegas. I don't think he's going to waive for Edmonton or I think Minnesota makes the most sense because of all the things we just discussed.
Yeah.
Anything can change based on if a goalie goes down in the next 48 hours, then maybe, if all of a sudden Tristan Jarry blows an ACL, I'm not rooting for that, folks. I'm just saying if that happens in Pittsburgh.
Right, that or, Shesterkin or something like that could change.
Right. Well, no, but yeah.
But I think, that could, I think I don't think there's many other places. I think you're right. I think, Kevin, you're right. I don't think there's many other options.
Yeah. It's too bad for Chicago, but they got this asset, and I'm sure when they got this asset, they were thinking, well, we'll be able to move them. There'll be 3 or 4. It's kind of up in the air and what they'll get.
Yeah.
If Minnesota's the only bidder, they're not going to have to give up 3 pieces.
Yeah, the first round draft pick is what I heard that Guerin doesn't want to trade. Do you think it's possible to get Fleury without a first round draft pick?
Well, it would depend on who the prospects are.
If there's no market.
Yeah. All right. Finally, and we can talk some other things too, but I definitely wanted to get this in. And then if you guys have anything else in, but I wanted to show this because I thought this was a video for a second here.
Mm-hmm.
Last night, the game between the Rangers and Islanders.
Here we go.
I was waiting for this.
Okay.
Right, what a game.
Oh, okay.
And what a save. Okay. So hold on.
Let me just say this.
A big collision between Lee and Nelson.
How well you can see this, guys.
Okay. Let me say this. When I saw this save on Twitter,
they'll show it again here. Here you go. That's just Shesterkin reaching out to grab Panarin to get Panarin.
Sorokin. Your Hart Trophy winner. But as soon as I saw this save on Twitter, I DM'd Russ and said, I know we're going to hear about this crap from.
We knew it was coming.
Come on, it's like one of the saves of the year, guys.
It's a great save. No question.
Nothing to do with Sorokin or the Islanders. The Islanders did win last night, which was
He's still not as good as Shesterkin.
But the Capitals are also 6-1 in their last 7. So the reality is
and you don't want to say it, but the Knights won. Golden Knights won yesterday too.
No, the Golden Knights won. They won, and Vancouver lost a really important, big loss. Kevin, that was a heck of a game for Red Wings.
Vegas's win was tainted by the fact that Jack Eichel got hurt.
Yeah. Well, he was blocking a shot. I don't think.
There are reports that he may have a broken bone in his hand.
He's still going to play though.
Well, okay. I'm just saying that.
Players can play with that. Depends. I think there's a chance he'll still play. They did sign Derek Pouliot, which again is a desperation move, but it's a depth defenseman for them. So that's at least going to solve part of that problem, or they hope it will.
Now here's a sign of somebody who was once well thought of, and how maybe now he's not well thought of. Andre Sekera was placed on waivers yesterday. He cleared. His salary is not that ridiculous, but he has fallen so far off that wasn't even a consideration for some teams.
Yeah, I think he has. And it is a case it is. You always think of these guys. They have he's also a veteran of trade deadlines passed too, isn't he? Like, just these guys who've been on every trade deadline you can remember.
Yeah, and plus he's got to be like 35, 36 years old, right?
I'm checking right now. I think he's 36, but because he played for Buffalo back in the day. I mean, let's see here.
You can ask the Terry has this question. Kevin, I'd like your opinion on this. He asked me, but I'd like to hear what you say. This is on
35.
This season of the season of the Islanders play. Is this Lou's final swan song as a GM, and should he be going to a consultant role in your opinion?
No, it is not. He's coming back.
Yeah.
I think he's said even publicly that he's still excited, and if you meet the guy, he does not appear to be 78 years old. So he's full of energy. So
it's
any Petrie action?
Absolutely none whatsoever. I thought somebody today was trying to sell me on that there was some, and I just don't.
No, I mean, it's surprising to me that Petrie is 34 years old.
Right,
yeah.
I agree with that.
I mean, I just can't believe that he's already 34. But that's the issue. Like if he was 27, I think the Red Wings would be interested. He's Dan Petrie's son. Dan Petrie,
right,
is a broadcaster in Detroit now. Like I think they would be interested, but they're not bringing in a 34-year-old with multiple years left on the contract.
He's a he's a defenseman who plays well but he can be really good in a bad situation or really bad in a good situation. If that makes any sense. Like if he's really good in certain spots, but it has to be the right spot for him. And I don't think
he's in one of those positions that athletes find themselves in where now his contract is the only thing that matters to anyone. People just can't deal with that contract.
It's interesting.
I'll tell you one thing I can't deal with. I keep getting an email telling me my mailbox is getting full. Stop sending me emails and filling up my mailbox when when it's getting full. Microsoft is part of the problem. That's all I want to say. Okay.
Yeah, well, I get the same email, but it's like I think there's an app, Dropbox, that you can transfer file. I keep saying your Dropbox is full. Please respond and pay $9.99 to expand the size of your Dropbox. I didn't even realize I had a friggin' Dropbox account.
Yeah, we all had you probably had to have it at some point. Something you're doing. Everybody, I find Dropbox is the one thing that everybody has because they had to have it once. And they don't know they still have it, but I
still have it, but I never use it. It's true.
You used to have to use it. Like in the early days of the internet, Dropbox was like a thing you had to have. Anyway, what else do we have? So Fleury, we think there. We're of course the show's going to be on. We're going to be going. I guess
probably either 11 or noon on Monday.
Yeah, maybe let's split the difference and say like 11:30.
Okay.
On Monday, because that is on a little bit earlier than noon.
We should bring up what Terry just brought up in the chat room.
Oh, what? No.
I don't think he's retiring, but I do think there's probably an issue.
No, at practice this morning, he's back on the roster. It was a personal issue, and now he's apparently it's fine. So there was some talk last night that Simmons had been moved from the active roster to the non-NHL roster, which is something that, if he had COVID or if he was sick or if there was some personal issue and we didn't know, and we asked the question, and Sheldon Keefe said that he was a healthy scratch. So it was apparently something, his wife, him and his wife just had a child. It could have been something related to a minor health crisis. So he was at practice this morning, so everything is fine.
Kevin, the game last night, Detroit really that was a tough loss for Vancouver.
Yeah, it was. There was a moment in that though that if you've been on Twitter today, you will see it. That people put up that perhaps it's a play that kind of showed why Seider should win the Calder Trophy. There's a sequence where he's playing unbelievable defense on a guy, then he gets shoved toward the crease. He immediately, laying on the ice, poke checks the puck away and goes to another guy, and then he blocks the shot of the next guy that shot. And there's been a lot of discussion. There are a lot of people in Vancouver that watched that and said, it's the first time I've seen him live, and oh boy, is this guy good? He's just, Ray Ferraro said he had not seen him live either, and said this guy's a superstar. And I keep saying that, like he is. he's special. Like
you
he's
saw
not just
the
a
first
good
days
player.
of Lidstrom. How does this compare, Kev? You saw Lidstrom as
Well, they're different players, like Lidstrom is not a body checker, and Sider is a physical force. Like,
Right, okay.
there are videos that people have put together about,
right.
Him slamming people, and
Right.
plus, and the other thing, it's so remarkable, and I've never seen anybody quite like this, and he's starting to now explore his offensive depth.
Okay.
But he was just piling up the points by never taking a single chance, just because he is so talented and he makes the right passes and everything else. And and now you're starting to see him move into the zone more.
Okay.
He's certainly capable of that. You see it a lot when he's in overtime, when he's 3-on-3. You can see that he can be dazzling as well. But mostly he's just a big, tough, mean, all-around defenseman, and he can really handle the puck. I mean, he's obviously not as gifted offensively as Lidstrom.
One more thing I could add. The other day, and he's got a great reach. He stole the puck from Connor McDavid. Like, he just outright stole it.
Yeah. No, he's just really, really good. And the composure level is that of a 10-year veteran. Like, he's certainly the best defenseman on Detroit, which isn't saying a lot. But he might be the best player. It's either him or Dylan Larkin. Like, he is
right.
And he's 20 years old.
He's the best defenseman they've had in a decade.
Oh yeah, he's best since Lidstrom, obviously. But his career is 60 games old. And
right.
Like he's played 800 games.
Yeah. I mean, do you think he will surpass Cale Makar?
He's surpass who?
Makar?
No. Makar is just so gifted.
He's on another planet.
It's a different kind of. I mean, obviously, offense, defense. I guess. Yeah.
They're just different kinds of players. It's the same thing with Adam Fox. Like, you can't. It's hard to compare those two because what Fox does and what Sider does are two different things. But I will say Sider is more complete. Like, you're not going to see Fox slam somebody against the boards.
No.
But those are great players. So. Doesn't mean Sider's going to be better than him. It just means, he's just a better all-around guy. He's got a lot more tools in his toolbox.
Mm-hmm. Is he the best German defenseman of all time?
Yeah. Well,
Dennis Seidenberg or him?
I think he's already better than Seidenberg.
Of course he is.
Seidenberg won a cup.
He was good. No, he was good, but you could see he's going to be better.
But he's right now. He's already considered the third best Euro defenseman behind Yossi and Edmund, which is pretty remarkable. Now Heiskin is pretty darn good, so I'm not ready. As much as I like Sider, I also like Heiskanen. But again, Heiskin is a different kind of defenseman. So
he is.
Is Yossi the closest thing? I'm trying to think of the best comparable to him, like as far as.
Well, to me, it's probably Doughty. When Doughty was, Doughty can hit. He can create offense.
Yeah.
And, that's what I would say. I mean, Doughty when he was at his best.
Doughty's a little better skater, and Sider's more physical. I think those are the differences, but they're pretty close otherwise.
Yeah.
But hockey sense, the Sider's hockey sense is off the charts. So that must be impressive to watch Kevin and live. Because I haven't seen him play live yet, but just like you can see on television, you can see the hockey sense is just insane.
Yeah,
and that's a really fun thing.
But getting back to what you said, it was a very difficult loss for Vancouver.
Yeah.
So they're in the thick of this, and to have a team like Detroit, a team that had given up, I think 6 or more goals in 5 of their last 9 games, and then suddenly be shut out.
Yeah,
is demoralizing.
It is, especially because this is so hard to get back in. Like we talked about, they made serious strides on Vegas. Vegas wins last night, and now suddenly they're they're back. And it's amazing because Vegas came off that road trip, and it's hard to argue that a team has had a worse 5-game road trip than Vegas had in that road trip. I mean, they lost to 5 bad teams, and they lost every game in regulation. They didn't get a single point out of it, which is crazy. It's a loud Winnipeg, and
you've been kvetching about Vegas for 2 weeks.
I'm just saying.
Still in the playoffs.
I know they aren't right now, actually, based on percentage.
They are. If you look at the
percentage-wise, they're not, right? if
You're again
COVID hits
counting
tomorrow,
money that
we have to
hasn't
stop.
been-
Percentage-wise, they're not in the playoffs.
You're counting money that hasn't been earned. That's what
Count
you're
the money.
doing.
Count the money.
I think we're boring people. All right, here we go. That's all the time we have for today. But we will be back on Monday for certain. So have a great weekend. And I have a feeling the trade rumor tracker launches tomorrow on Hockey Buzz. So that'll be fun. I have a feeling
I think you got inside information on that one, Ek.
I think the deadline, I think the deadline is gonna be Saturday and Sunday. I think Monday we may. I don't know. I hope we have players left to talk about.
Okay, I'm bringing Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, yes or no, to the show.
Yeah, we'll do something.
I'll talk about the draft too. That's fine.
We can talk about the draft, we can talk about. I got a couple of fun things too, but we'll get there. We'll figure it out. But so have a great weekend. Stay with Hockey Buzz. Stay with us, and remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. So we will talk.